Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Welcome to EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy. For too long now, our generally perceived poorly educated electorate have fallen victim to the cheap and inferior propaganda of those seeking to hold others captive under the guise of democracy. Gladly, the CDGG uses EDDIE-FICATION to help to actively pursue a sustainable approach to reorient our people towards the importance of electing and selecting people of good character to public life. Through EDDIE-FICATION, we will highlight the importance of education appropriate to our development, proper healthcare and facilities as our right, respect for law and order, not to mention upgrading our people's thinking so they could become qualified participants in the democratic process to their advantage. After all, Grenada's national constitution makes allowances for the ideal of free men to enjoy freedom from fear and want, which can be best achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his economic, social and political, civil and cultural rights.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all. Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation.
Wonderful, folks, wonderful, and welcome to my first edition of EDDIE-FICATION for 2024. And as we get prepared here, let me just settle myself quite nicely here, and we will get on with it. Of course, you need to expect that today will be an extended version as last week's. But nonetheless, we've got to move on here, folks. Before I even say welcome, I don't like sharing bad news, but of course I see Waggy T has already commiserated with, of course, family and so of this particular gentleman, Wayne Louison, a stalwart, a very, very upstanding guy at Bailey's Funeral Home. Oh, he will be missed. He was the personification of loyalty. He was the personification of gratitude, commitment, discipline, willingness. He was a good man. He will be missed. You know, when you think of how much we make fuss about things and about all sorts of nonsense, you know, and we have to pass this way only once. And some of us are having a PhD in nonsense and rubbish. Every day we're living in a squalor. Not just squalor physically, I'm talking squalor in the mind. It's really, really sad. But anyhow, let's get the beat on here. Welcome, goodly folks, on this wonderful 7th day of the new year, 2024. As we usher in 2024, let's rebuke all out of timing things, all out of timing circumstances, frequencies, and energy that our enemies plot for us. Let us remind ourselves that through our continuous poor choices, we too can be our worst enemies. There is something about this year that feels great, and we must convert that feeling with the right supportive action in order to make it make sense to us
And so we all can stand in our various purposes. I pray and trust that we will pledge to ourselves that we will remain focused on the great intentions that we have for ourselves, and with discipline and commitment, convert all our dreams into reality. Trust me, folks, it is not impossible. Remember, impossible is spelled impossible. And if you break it up a bit, you'll realize even in the word impossible, it is telling us that I'm possible. I'm possible. So you realize everything in and of itself is not just negative. It depends on how you look at it. You see, as we take on this new year, I want us to remember that we were born to stand out and not to fit in, and that God did not give us 7 different days each week so that we can live any of them twice, but that we shall live each day fully and reap the abundance that awaits us at the end of each fulfilled day. You see, this is how we grow, and this is how we can etch out our niche in life, thus being able to leave a rich and lasting positive legacy as a reminder that we lived. I know my epitaph would only read, he lived, because he really did. Our topic for today, folks, you are not here to match energy. You are here to shift the atmosphere. You were born to be a game changer. When you walk into a room, people in the room must feel you. You are here to vibrate at a higher level than the common animal. So when you are a high vibration person, animals will feel safe in your presence. People have no choice but to stare at you in public. Random strangers feel comfortable coming up to you to talk and to tell you their life story while seeking your counsel. You can feel the energy of a room shift when you walk in that room. You irritate toxic people and ordinary hypocrites just by being your true, authentic self. Game changers never feel responsible for someone else's behavior or interpretation of what was said to them. Game changers understand that they are not required to be loyal to someone who treats them badly. When you operate at a high frequency in terms of your energy field, it is easy for you to pay attention to how you feel around anybody, because you know energy never lies. So pay attention to how you feel around anybody. The healthier you are, the more unhealthy people will pull away from you. And I believe that's what you need. So get healthy, people. Get healthy, because Grenada is a factory for unhealthy people for the most part. What does health look like? Folks, health looks like boundaries, standards, convictions, quality. You must know who you are, whether other people are in your life or not. So when you get healthy, and proper maturity does that to you, it is difficult, bordering on impossible for a lot of people to connect with you. You see, quite a large percentage of people approach life and even their spiritual side in unhealthy ways. And so it is going to be lonely for anyone who makes up his mind to vibrate at a higher frequency than the average bear. This is where we discover that our private battles rarely matter. Our private victories matter also. You see, getting wholeness in our own hearts matter, whether we get accepted by others or not. I was looking at a pastor, Keon Henderson, recently, and he uttered the following words: you cannot stay in environments where people don't know the true value of you. If you remain in such environments, You will shrink your gift to the size of what they can stand. That is what causes anxiety, depression, and stress, because you have had to shrink into a form where people can tolerate you. I refuse to think small just because you are small. I am not sharing my vision and shrinking it because you can't catch up. You better roll with me or you will get rolled over, unquote. Could you imagine shrinking in a stunted and malnourished environment in the strictest sense of the word, as our society here in Grenada has become, just to be accepted and liked? I say, hell no, that has got to be sick. Such people need to be mentally treated with urgency. You are not here to match energy. You are here to shift the atmosphere. You're born to be a game changer, folks. Hold yourself true to that affirmation, and you will notice immediate changes in your life. You would not give a damn one way or other. Trust me in this, folks. Trust me, as I know what I'm talking about. Let's take a little break, and we'll come back because we have a lot of blaze going on here today. So let's take this little worthwhile break, a breather, and we'll come right back with more.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Allow me, folks, to commiserate with the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines on the recent plane crash which took the lives of all 4 occupants of a small private plane. The matter is still under investigation with a view to reaching a conclusion as to the cause of the crash. What is sad is that it seems a father and 2 daughters were part of that particular, manifest, and unfortunately lost their lives together with the pilot. What a devastating time for surviving relatives of all 4 occupants of that particular small private plane. You see, folks, we have a lot of things happening that are just not nice around us. But yet for all, we are behaving as if we came to take up permanent residence on earth. And in so doing, we are distributing a lot of hate, a lot of malice, a lot of jealousy, a lot of rubbish. Folks, just help correct history now. History is history. History is not based on opinions. And therefore, what I do here, have you noticed that the things that irritate a lot of people about what I say is that they are incontrovertible? Isn't that interesting? That is what annoys them, They are steeped in facts. And we do not want, when our history is written, it is malnourished with a lot of rubbish and untruths. And I am here. I may not be able to help you with intelligence, but I can help rearrange your ignorance. You see, While this went on in St. Vincent, this particular plane crash, several of us were preoccupied with being concerned about a cabinet reshuffle, which was reduced to he say, she say, them say, and the usual circling the drain conversation that we have been reduced to since the trauma of 1995 to 2022, for the most part, which has led to a deterioration in the main as a society and civilization. Folks, the issue regarding the cabinet reshuffle attracted the lowest of lows in terms of discourse, as if people in our fake democracy did not get the memo as yet to know that the cabinet of ministers is a creature of the prime minister, whoever holds that office, and that each member sits at the pleasure of the holder of that office. This therefore means they can be moved and shifted at any time. And all a sitting prime minister has to do is to advise the governor general of such changes, and boom, done. If businesses would shift around their department heads and managers as often as they should, they may not suffer so much staleness in daily operations, become victims of corruption, and end up sharing up their profits with some of these inherently dishonest executives who vex. That is your business. And if you hear them talking because they are upset about a statement, check them, because they must be guilty. The same applies for government service, more so at the cabinet level. Well, that is something that the government does not and would do as often as necessary, as they tweak the national administration to make it efficient and effective in pursuit of carrying out its mandate. This also has the effect of making cabinet ministers flexible and able to operate at the policy level at various portfolios under the governance caption. No one has been thrown out. No one is fired. No one died. And generally, that's the kind of development that make our news. Whether this Deacon Mitchell administration or the other gang of drakes and hens. Hello? You remember the other gang of drakes and hens? We've learned that a soup being stirred is not news. If you stir in a soup, you stir in a soup. What? If the soup were noticeably improved with replacement ingredients and additions, I could see the hullabaloo. Too much emphasis is placed on us as a people, majoring in minor. Yes, Che Langdon, drakes and hens, because that's what the last group was. I have already submitted that our present population construct is not qualified to participate in Westminster-style democracy. After all, democracy in and of itself presupposes its participants are intelligent. Where is the intelligence in our people over the period 74 to the present? From 1995 to 2022, for the most part, the people showed their deterioration by allowing the most inferior infidels to grope the corridors of political power, stymieing any hope of Grenada becoming the truly independent state that it had the potential and promise to be, as demonstrated by the only administration that came closest to meeting the developmental needs of our people, the People's Revolutionary Government. Hey, that's history. It happened, and it's a truth. Incontrovertible truth. And here who's telling you? A Garyite. That makes it credible. Interestingly, it was the only system of government that ran contrary to and totally outside of Westminster-style democratic principles, and came so close to succeeding. Could you imagine that? In 4.5 years, healthcare was improved, education and agriculture improved, commitment shown to tourism development through the construction of an international airport. Agro-industry showed tremendous promise, with Grenada being set up in the main to be self-sufficient. All that crashed with the demise of the revolution and the return to Westminster-style democracy, with everybody having an opinion and feeling the need to express same and attract corresponding action according to that opinion, and thus was reborn the crash of our hopes at ever becoming a force to be reckoned with in our neck of the woods and on the world stage, I dare say. The repercussions of this need has to have our opinion ventilated. We just must have our opinion ventilated because it's all right, even though the opinion suit the drain. And our perceived rights must be respected and not trampled upon, has been and continues to be the death of all of us, individually and collectively. We are not prepared to sacrifice anything for the greater good because we are not yet developed to the stage that we can appreciate the need for us to do without something in pursuit of something we know to be better for us. Hell, no sacrifice. We're not interested in that. Out of the desperate need for change, the majority of people who voted catapulted the old nastiness and his Drake-like crew out of office. And yet in the main, many people expect things to remain the same. We have to admit that the weekly post-cabinet briefings that this nation got accustomed to over the period 1995 to 2022, for the most part, was a whole lot of nonsense. Rubbish. The Nigerians put it even better. Rubbish. With the local media totally emasculated and rendered useless by the old nastiness, these briefings were nothing but a bloody sham. They were presided over by liars who fed the nation with contempt repeatedly. The new administration, made up of mostly younger citizens who have a duty to manifest the change we expect, delivered a major change by discontinuing these nonsense post-cabinet briefings with a commitment to deliver them as they are determined to be necessary. In other words, when they have something to announce. And the stuck-in-timers citizens seem to be upset. The Nigerian said it. Rubbish. And I say rubbish to that. Give the darn airwaves a chance to breathe with something different as against the old stale style of politics, which are not in keeping with the youthful dominated atmosphere in which we live, with over 62% of our population under the age of 35, with the median age of our nation at 32. This stale nonsense has to stop. And it has stopped. And I'm glad the Deacon Mitchell administration had the guts to stop it, because all of that is mama guy and papi show. In the same way, the Prime Minister planned a press briefing for Friday, 5th January, to release his cabinet reassignments, at which the local media was invited. Yet for all, they have a problem with them not being invited to the papi show swearing in by the Governor General. That is just ceremonial rubbish. Get used to it. Things have changed. I am praying that it never goes back to how it functioned in the past with all this Westminster-style mama guy papi show nonsense. When the revolutionaries made drastic changes and decisions, Grenada made progress. When Grenada followed the status quo only rubbish we're seeing before us. I say change this goddamn nonsense and get on with the business of running the bloody country. I am sure after the press briefing on Friday to announce the ministerial reassignments to include the addition of Mrs. Delma Thomas to the Cabinet of Ministers, that the so-called media must realize that they were making much ado about nothing and manifesting how stuck in time they are, indeed, while they volunteered to be used by sore losers to peddle nonsense, stuck in time stupidness through their misplaced noise. I just wish and pray that the standouts among Grenadian media practitioners, whether locally or foreign-based, would step up to the plate and help the local disheveled Fourth Estate as they are screaming loudly for help. The period 1995 to 2022, for the most part, was used to deliver pittance, handouts, and other favors as a Tantalus for the several greedy among them who sacrificed their professional inclination to be sub-zeroed and are therefore not taken seriously by anyone today. Any blind man can see, and any deaf man can hear, that they need help. And if you can, and you don't, and instead appear to join them in their dung day vibrations, you can be safely considered to be negligent, and you too may not end well. Lend a hand. Help the local media. They are in dire need of assistance. I'm just learning that the news media may have boycotted the Prime Minister's media briefing on Friday last, even though I totally agree that they are within their right to do what they feel justified in doing to satisfy how they feel about being left out of the Mama Guy Papi Show swearing in of each minister to their new portfolio. I hasten to add that in this day and age, with the presence of social media and most people ready to hit the share button, the boycott may have had little to no effect. Social media have become the main carrier of all media-worthy activities these days, which serve to render mainstream media powerless for the most part. With the non-effectiveness of any boycott, real or imagined, they have established the fact that they are not so necessary after all. What impact did their boycott have, if anything? The news still got out and everybody knows what happened and who are assigned and where they're assigned. You see, the news still got out. Everybody knows what happened and who are assigned where and when. Come on, folks. Begging to remain in the position of Fourth Estate will not keep people there, especially as people have grown accustomed to perceiving most of them to have been complicit with aiding and abetting the old nastiness and his lies and dishonesty for so goddamn long. Folks, you are called upon to bring your authenticity into prominence by standing for something. Remember, you are not here to match energy. You are here to shift the goddamn atmosphere. You were born to be a game changer, not a follower and subscriber of nonsense. Let's take another break. Could you imagine if they have more heat to come after this segment?
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the country cold store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. And for those of you just joining, I want to thank you very much for joining. Thank you. Hit that share button and let's get some more people in the room, because there's a lot of heat on the first edition of Edification for 2024, an indication of things to come. Folks, we cannot make joke in this country today. You know why? Because there are too many jokers who are very serious in this country. We have to get them to understand this is serious business. Welcome back. In the wisdom of the Prime Minister, he sees it fit and proper to aid whatever his strategy is, to refine his administration as it heads to the 2-year mark since taking office. If I know him as well as I believe I do, he will remain vigilant. And this may very well not be the only or last time realignment of ministers and ministries take place, in order to get the best out of them while bringing benefits to the electorate, to the national community, so to speak. Each minister will be well advised to do the best job they can to prove how worthy they are for the ministry they are assigned. The 3-year mark is when they all should be able to start to count their achievements and victories, great or small, and present their flow of positive and beneficial activities to their constituents in their bid for a second term. You see, when the old stale coup soup was being stirred by the old nastiness for all of 1995 to 2022, for the most part, we did not hear much talk at all, and rightly so, because nothing more could have come from the con men and con women of our past. So we all knew that realignment for the old nastiness was used as a form of punishment to keep his goons in line. That's all. If you as a leader could be speaking about your women folks and colleagues in a way to confirm your knowledge of them, and they still remain loyal to you, how you call that? If not stupidity and dotishness, I don't know what else it can be called. Imagine referring to one as a thief and elevating her spouse to the second to the top position in an entity, not even making efforts to confirm him in that post or the post just below it, which is still higher than his substantive position, and they like you still. How you call that? That has to be dotishness. If you will refer to another female colleague as wanting you to mind her husband and what she thinks this is, yet for all that woman continues to bat for you, how you call that? That has to be dotishness indeed. If you could refer to the longest serving woman on your team as wishy-washy, when asked what about her to take over from you, but she can still be seen to be loyal to you, how you call that? Folks, there's some words I would love to use here, but I know you know those words already. But that is, according to April, real dotishness. And you want to come and talk to this nation about an assault on democracy, an assault. Well, come on. According to the Bahamians, why don't you go to sleep? These 3 women are total fools and only seek to make an ass of women in general. Women in Grenada, I call on each and every one of you to reject such women if any such woman is around the precincts of leadership of anything you're a part of, get rid of them. They are showing you they have no self-respect, no self-worth, and no goddamn shame. They are accustomed to their abuser, that they are afraid that if they may encounter worse if they remove themselves, not knowing that if they leave, they will expose themselves as candidates for better. But it shows how damaged their minds are, that they stay with all they know while they constantly adjust to make room for more abuse. If that is not the description of suckers for punishment, I don't know what else is. But you see, Delma Thomas wasn't so stupid, and they want to crucify her because she's not dotish and she's not a sucker for punishment. I always wonder what kept them from seeing clearly on the horizon that change was bound to come, and that they could have kept the people of Grenada down for so long and no longer, and that is why they're not coming back. But you see, when one is on a roll and enjoying it, one loses sight of reality. I posited some time before the last election was announced in my clamor for change that COVID-19 came and opened a lot of people's eyes, and that the post-pandemic period will require new thinking by all of us just to cope and recover. The same thinking that we entered the pandemic with cannot be the same thinking that will get us out and see our recovery. And that group of goons and drakes and hens that we had for government needed to be replaced for us to stand a chance. I recall one close ally to the then administration, who I know very well, challenging me privately on that matter. All I said to that person was, wait and you will see. Today, that same person is meeting up with me in a public space, hauling me to the corner to tell me, let me share it with you here now, folks. Boy, I don't know if I could really ever support that entity again now. I have been seeing today that all that you were saying in the past and continue to say was and is nothing but the truth about that man. In fact, I was with close friends recently, and we had to agree that he's a real old nastiness in truth. Folks, and if all you only know who told me that, and you know a person listening now, all I said in return was, hallelujah, I am glad you've finally seen the light. But you know, there's a lot of people singing from that same hymn sheet, you know. A lot of people still sing, a lot of people, because people are getting to know and getting to realize that they were not paying attention in truth. This guy is an old nastiness, and he ain't good, and he ain't good long. You see, the person posited further that they never thought the pension could have been paid, far less to have been paid so soon after the election, when they were made to believe that it was not possible, that it would have been a drain on the public purse. He said, look at how the roads are being fixed in a way that could last a little longer. Look at how the Molyneux Road, main road, is being attended to with urgency and progressing apace, and does not cost the amount of money we were told that it was likely to cost. You see, folks, I said, you know, when you remain nearer to that liar, you are removing yourself further and further from the light of truth. And there are many of you who are still buried. Your head is buried with this old nastiness, and you're living a life that the lights will soon be turned off from, and you will be going to your grave not knowing any better. Folks, that has to be a lot of dotishness. While in office with 15 seats, I was always amazed that you couldn't find 8 of them. 8 of them. They couldn't find it in their hearts to come together to remove this power-hungry maniac. Yes, the old nastiness from the position that he was surely never fit for, by going to the Governor General to advise her that they no longer had confidence in his leadership and that he should be replaced with whoever they named. None of them had the balls to do so. That is why today he shows them unadulterated and qualified contempt by not wanting to give up the leadership because he cannot find a successor among their ranks. They all helped to confirm that monster, which they and many others created and from whom they cannot escape now. They instead remained grateful and allowed their gratitude to destroy them. Gratitude is not something that has to continue ad infinitum. People change, circumstances change, light is changed, and when the true nature of man surfaces and one gets to realize he or she was being used instead of was being kind to, gratitude ought to go out the door. Folks, many times, because the source of what you were tempted to remain eternally grateful for did not come from a genuine place, you have to allow karma to throw the chips where they may. Throw the chips where they may. But you can only think like this when you were brought up on a diet of values, substance, and paying attention. Paying attention. It amazes me that many of these inferior minds among us have standards and high expectations of the NDC administration that they did not exact on the last administration or even in their own lives. How about it that these same people lift their own bar before they expect what they expect from someone else? You see, when the old nastiness was around the precincts of power and they could not go to him for help, they didn't mind whatever favors he wanted to give them, the pittance. They remained mute as long as the crumbs were being dished out to them for their silence. All of a sudden, crumbs stopped sharing, and you can hear them speaking up because they too have become integral to the hungry mouths around. Oh God, some people bad we. I learned a long time now that insecurity is loud and confidence is quiet. We see confidence oozing from the pores of the current Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, while we see insecurity coming from the old nastiness. You have to remember that throughout your day while engaging with people, while they are being defensive. Remember that, folks. Confidence is quiet. Insecurity is loud. You see, their defensiveness has nothing to do with confidence. Quite the opposite. Confident people are not sitting in judgment of a bunch of people. They are not spending time trying to for you to hear their side of any story that they're involved in. When others know your side of the story, that's not necessarily going to change their mind. Let them believe whatever the hell they want to believe anyway. That's how you can spot someone who's confident and someone who's dealing with insecurity. You see, if you know you and you love you, that's what matters. Nothing else matters, folks. It's the same for anybody else. So stop getting all bent out of shape when someone gets all aggressive at what you have or what you have said. You don't have to worry about them. Just spot your confidence, spot your authenticity, and be genuinely you. And let them grow a hole in their soul for who you are. Let them go to their favorite place of comfort, the gutter. Because you know when people cannot handle your erudition, your intellect, and they cannot respond at your level, you know they dive for the gutter. They have to get personal, and they have to go down to see if they can find some slime. And if they can't find slime, they invent slime. A confident person never worries about that. Folks, be careful who you support or allow to lead you, whether in the church, your workplace, your community group, your friendship, in your everyday walk of life. You cannot go further than your leader. Could you imagine if your leader is a thief? You cannot go further than becoming a thief too. A lot of leaders are just barely surviving in their personal life and just going through the motions on a daily basis in what they do for a living. Most are not studying to eat. They are studying to sound and look good. Most of our leaders in society don't grow. And because they don't grow, they can't take you any further. It is not God's will for any of us to not grow. So stop following leaders that are not growing. They're growing in their thieving ways. They're growing in their personal pockets while they infect you and contaminate you and cause you to become a thief also. The greatest test of a real leader is their ability to develop another leader. There are 4 stages of competence. And if you ever had a teacher or a coach that said to you, I do, you watch. I do, you help. You do, I help. You do, I chair. Great leaders are aware that the 4 stages are an even thing, and they should be able to watch someone who is following them through those 4 stages so that that person actually can lead others. That type of character was never and is never to be found in the old nastiness. And hence today, at almost 80, he insists on holding on because even he is too, he's just afraid to be cancelled. He's afraid to be cancelled, so he's holding on. But he never developed any leadership in any of his team members because he chose them well. He chose them because one of the criteria for choosing them was to make sure they have no leadership qualities. A matter of fact, he chose them because they had no balls. We ought to know by now that what goes into a mind comes out in a life. You cannot rise beyond the quality of your thoughts, folks. If they tell you to be praying for the future to be okay, and the education system in your country and what our children are exposed to in our schools is wretched, that is called self-deception. There is misalignment in the thinking. The whole nation has to pray. We have to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. So again, let's revisit what I said at the beginning of this particular sharing. You cannot rise beyond the quality of your thoughts. The way to change your life is to change your thoughts. This is where our national education system and the schools come in. We have to start with our younger generations. The older generations got so accustomed to rubbish that they think how they live and how they were taught is how things were meant to be. We live in a different time and things have changed, and therefore how we treat with these changes have got to change. How long have you been focused on what people think or say, folks? Work with me here and check back at the benefits you derived from such. So you see, you're not here to match energy. You are here to shift the goddamn atmosphere. You were born to be a game changer, not a follower and a subscriber to nonsense. Let's take in another break and we'll come right back with some more goodies.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the country cold store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. And for those of you just joining, thank you for coming in. As soon as you come in, hit the share button and let's get some more people in the room. I want to thank all of you for your great numbers today, for joining and feeling so edified, and all your comments, your interaction. Wow, it's going to take me a long time to be able to read through when I'm done. But thank you. Keep them coming. You know, folks, I have seen here some jealousy, boy. They have some serious jealousy. And, you know, you don't expect to see that level of jealousy, what should I say, roaming around the precincts of even young people. You see it. Oh, it's so sad. And all sorts of guile, all sorts of nonsense. Anyhow, that's for another time. This new season, folks, requires a new spirit. We cannot step into a new season with an old mindset. If your attitude continues to be one of pessimism instead of optimism, fear instead of faith, you will step into a new season and you will never be able to embrace what God's gifts are for you. Your new attitude for this new year and beyond has got to be, listen to me carefully, folks, because I'm going to ask you to put it in the comment section. I see blessings in battles and God's provisions in my problems. I see blessings in battles and God's provisions in my problems. I see blessings in battles and God's provisions in my problems. Come on, put that in the comment section as an affirmation coming from you today. I see blessings in battles and God's provisions in my problems. Folks, this is no joking. We have to start looking for positive things. Even in negative situations, if you stop, take a deep breath, and you look carefully, you can see the positive in the negative development. It's quite an interesting thing. If you stop, if you expunge the emotions from it, you'd be surprised to see what you can actually see coming out of any negative that people throw at you. I see blessings in battles and God's provisions in my problems. That is your affirmation for this week. I see blessings in battles and God's provisions in my problems. If you do not have that attitude, you cannot rise in your new season. You have, folks, to forget. You have to forget wanting to continue to follow the old clown of a nastiness who is sent out by the faceless, nameless monster with strict instructions not to return home without making a complete ass of himself, and who dutifully obeys. Forget that clown for fear that you totally destroy yourselves, and as a generation, you end with no good legacy just like him. Be very, very careful, folks. This new shift to your new season will undoubtedly create new challenges that you can ever face. Folks, it's normal rather to feel ill-equipped to face any new challenges. We have to understand that Gideon did not know how to fight like he was able to. Moses did not know how to lead a nation. Noah did not know how to build an ark. David did not become a giant killer until the opportunity presented itself with a giant in front of him. These challenges are meant to elevate you when you solve them. There is victory on the other side always. There is promotion on the other side of your breakthroughs. You see the relevance of the affirmation now? I see blessings in battles and God's provisions in my problems. Many of us feel because we see something or hear something, we in turn know what we are talking about when we repeat them. Too many of you show yourselves up as shallow. And before you hear something, or you may even reach late to see something, without facts, you post about it, tell the world about it, brag about it, and end up making a complete ass of yourself over it, while you distort how other people see your subject that you have no real idea about. Some of you don't know and you don't care that you just posted distortion. You're too quick to share, to comment, to like, and believe the rubbish people post. And now with artificial intelligence, yikes, which can make people look like they were really in a situation addressed with their voice and picture manipulated to look real. Our level causes us easily to believe, because that is what we wanted to hear and see of that person anyway. I advise you to step it up in the faculty of intelligence by becoming aware of actualities around you, clinging to the few people who are still left with integrity that you can bounce things off before concluding on anything that can make you look stupid, like many of you effortlessly make yourselves without help. I see a person who has a job as a teacher at one of our so-called premier secondary schools, showing up themselves as one of the reasons why something grave is wrong with our education system in Grenada, just by the posts and comments, likes and shares this person makes. All I can say, people like us who have no small children to be taught by someone like that can count ourselves lucky indeed. The old spoiled wines that want to pour themselves into the new wineskins of our nation, our youthful and impressionable children, can only continue to spoil them indeed and render them as useless as they have become, and insist on remaining till death. You have to be careful whose advice you take. You have to be careful whose spirit you let in your soul. You have to be careful who you spend an hour or hours on the phone with. You've got to be careful, folks. Too many people around and among us have become contaminants, and we have to wear repellent just to fend them off. Many of you would be well advised to realize, if you are my age, a little younger, or a little, or even a lot older, and you have order and structure in your life, we have to be too darn old to care about who like us and who don't like us. If you love us, we love you. If you support us, we support you. If you hate us, we just don't give a damn. Our lives go on without you. Just sit down for a moment and take a look at us. and look at you. And you would realize that the deficit is on your side. You need to do some introspection and change. Folks, when your prayers are answered, you must never get upset. You must never argue. If you prayed for God to remove distractions in your life, and during this 2024, you have not seen certain people in your life, take it that your prayers have been answered. This might include people you thought of as closest to you. You should not be shocked because they were not meant to be there anyway. When you are winning, people are always lining up to come for you. People don't go after losers, particularly in this day and age. Their definition of them winning is knocking you off your path instead of creating their own. Another set of people you see appear to be on the winning side, and so they close you up and crowd you until they can pounce on you when you least expect them to, with a request for a favor. You know how many people who perceive me to be close to the powers that be and are attempting to hot me up these days? I keep the same energy, folks, with them. And in fact, by doing so, I am compelling them to do the same. Some calls I never take, and many of them never come through. And thank God our telephone system is as such that many times calls that should come in never register. In the normal times, that can be annoying. But in the time when people want to make use of others, oh, that fault of our local phone system is quite genius. The several of you who have joined the confused to wonder and pronounce yourselves antisocial, I want you to listen to this. You need to hear this. Before I came to this conclusion about myself and my new lifestyle that I've grown so goddamn accustomed to, I used to think I became antisocial until I realized that I'm not at all. I am still my authentically sociable self, just not to every and anybody anymore. I am just sick and tired of all the fake people using each other to gain something. Sick and tired of it. I am very social in my circle, and many of you are just not a part of it. Socializing has become a freaking sport, a thing you get dressed up for, and when observed, one can see that you report to your event with your whole selves dominated by all your undesirable character traits, and never your best selves devoid of them. You know, your pictures that you love to share and tag other people in tell the story of how fake many of you are. Many of you have so much to learn about the profoundness of the saying, a picture tells 1,000 words. You see, folks, finding a frank and matter-of-factly person to include in your circle is like finding a diamond, rare, precious, and priceless. Such person's life may never have been easy, but they were able to use difficulties in the past to give strength to themselves. Isn't that interesting? You see, when one is educated, hardworking, and wise, that person is worth more cherishing than anyone else. They bring into themselves a heart bigger than the universe and always holds their head high, facing every obstacle, so anyone shouldn't underestimate them, especially as such person always knows their worth. Can you find such a person? Are you such a person? If you are not, it would be wise for you to spend some time developing yourself into that type of person. You will thank me later. Trust me, I am already one and tweaking myself to become an even better one at it. You are not here to match energies, folks. You are here to shift the atmosphere. You were born to be a game changer. I am in, I am out. And just before I am gone, I want to ask this question, because we have a lot of people who seem to not understand the rules of life, the rules of evolution in life. Folks, we evolve. That schoolmate that you went to school with, in whether it's primary, secondary, or tertiary level, whom you had no contact with, that you may not have bonded properly with while you were going to school in the first place, that person cannot truthfully tell anybody they know you. The same way you cannot say to anybody that you know them. You don't know each other anymore. You knew each other at a certain stage. So how many of you went to school with people so many years ago who you have never had much or even any contact with after your school years that still feel they know you today? How many of you have people who feel they know you because of what you post on social media pages? Are these people aware of the battles you go through in silence or in the privacy of your own spaces? The devils you had to rebuke, the negative energies you had to constantly repel, the lions and bears that you had to fight. And you are still standing. Do they know about these things? They should realize now how they really don't know you. Folks, if you're willing to be the most fearless, authentic version of yourself, and God knows we have one or two of them around Grenada, you need to ask yourself this question and honestly answer it too. Are you willing to accept the consequences and risks of being the most authentic and assertive version of yourself? If you want to be authentic and speaking your mind and communicating boldly, there is a price you have to be prepared to pay. You have to be willing to face resistance. You have to be willing to disagree with people. You have to be willing to face the possibility of people not going to like you. And there is going to be a lot of situations, folks, where people are going to disagree with you and not accept. They would not accept what you have to say. You need to be prepared for all of that and more. If you are on the journey of personal development, you have to be willing to accept those consequences, because those consequences are serious. Everyone likes you when you are willing to do what everyone asks and tells you to do. Nobody likes you when you have boundaries, especially if your fence is very high. Many of you would do well to grow some boundaries. A lot of you have too low a fence around you. And so it perpetuates this entitled vibe that we live with, where many people just don't know their goddamn place. Folks, if I believe Guinness Book of Records may have been around, I don't know the history of that particular publication, but they may have been around. But a gate being erected in Grenada, if it were only registered, it would have been hard to beat. I don't know the exact period, but I can tell you there were two women, wives of prominent men, who used to feel the need, because they knew Sir Eric Gary was a dapper dresser. He wasn't Sir yet, but he was a dapper dresser. And they used to feel the need to arrive when they know that he has a function to go to. These two wives, idle wives, to go into his room, take out his suits and put them on the bed as if they wanted a piece of what you call the credit for how he dressed. He never said anything, but he was always annoyed. And he got the bright idea to make sure Mount Royal was outfitted in the shortest possible time frame, with a gate and a sentry at the gate. And there was this particular event that, of course, they knew he was going to preside over. And they arrived. And of course, the policeman had strict orders. Let no one in, including these two women. And they were communicated to this information. And those two women became anti-Gary from that day until they died. Could you imagine that? These were fast, fresh, forward, and frontish women. People of that vintage know who these women are. That story was told to me by a deceased woman. And I remember corroborating it with the late Derek Knight, QC, because we enjoyed a very good relationship. And he was like, "How old you say you are again, man? You had to be in your 90s because you know too many old things." Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Folks, the more you understand what boundaries mean, the less people will like you. Interestingly, you will get to find out how fantastic and healthy that is. Less people liking you, because people don't like you for the sake of liking you. They like you because they see the potential of benefiting from liking you. Most people will now talk about you because your boundaries cause them to lose the privilege to talk to you. So they will instead talk about you. One last but important point to ponder here, folks. I have been seeing queries regarding independence celebrations and the cost of polo and t-shirts, the scarcity of activities and events to mark the occasion of 50 years since Britain granted Grenada independence. I proffer the question again because it annoys me. What is there to celebrate? We are only qualified to observe the occasion. Apart from Spice Island Beach Resort, staying right here in Grenada and becoming and remaining world famous with its offerings, topped off by quality customer experiences. The Grenada Cooperative Bank, starting as a mere savings union and just under 100 years ago, morphing now into the largest bank in Grenada today. The creative group of companies whose sole owner evolved from a draftsman to a building contractor who took full advantage of an early break, never disappointed, to evolve further into Grenada's leading owner of Grenada's leading construction outfit, famed for building and rebuilding and renovating and what have you, places like St. George's University, Spice Island Beach Resort, Sandals, Tamsisi, Republic Bank, RBTT, when they were here, Roman Catholic Cathedral in St. George's, and many more, among a few others, because we have a few others, who are all locally owned, managed, and staffed. But from a state's perspective, a national perspective now, owned by the government of Grenada, what do we have to celebrate? We surely cannot celebrate poverty and vulnerability 50 years on. What do we have to celebrate? We surely cannot celebrate dunceness, scandal, and shame. We surely cannot celebrate depravity. We ought not celebrate thieving, scheming, wheeling and dealing of state operatives for their own personal gain, while the nation nosedived over the 50 years, especially between 1995 and 2022, for the most part. Many of you who are running your mouths don't realize that you are equally culpable and blameworthy for the lack of achievements over the years, as many of you aided and abetted the nonsense you kept going back for helpings of every 5 years. Now you get so accustomed to fat and free food, so you could belch and fart loudly after you eat and before you vomit while overcoming your hangover. But you find nothing is happening to your liking. Well, those days are done. If you were not negligent over the entire period of our 50 years, you would have something worthy of celebrating today. Check yourselves and realize that things have changed in Grenada. A new sheriff is in town and all the slackness done. Time to settle down. You want to celebrate independence? Go back to school. Improve your education and thus your thinking, your level of reasoning. Report to work on time for your start at 8 or 9. And give an honest day's work for your day's wage. Stop depending on your legal aid, the unions, to come to your support and support your poor behavior at work, as if you are only entitled to your pay and you don't have to work at all. Those are only a few of the pointers that can help build our nation so that we can truly celebrate independence. Otherwise, take observing the occasion in your funkwe, because you have nothing to celebrate. You were also blameworthy. You see, you all are very lucky you did not have a government like the one headed by John Magufuli of Tanzania, who during his first year took the independence celebrations budget and improved the hospital facilities with it and told the people of Tanzania, that is how we are celebrating our independence this year. No fat and no nonsense. That's the kind of tough love a lot of among you need. As I close, I must make the point here that whereas the NDC administration headed by Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell is doing all it can with its limited resources to transform this nation, mangled by nearly 30 years of lies, nepotism, rubbish, corruption, scheming, and other forms of nastiness. The party he leads with its everyday operations director in the office of General Secretary can be seen to be doing bugger all. The party needs to clamor for change in that area, whether it is of the person in the position or in the way the position functions or does not function. But this is a separate subject for another time, as I have more than enough to say about this. Grenada needs to see and feel the National Democratic Congress, a party that has perfected the art over the years of 15-0 under the old guard thinking and way of operating. If there are any remnants of that type of people around whose efforts might be serving to stymie the transformation from within, there needs to be a second rising up to rid the organization of all of them. Such people have to get the memo that things have changed. And if they will not change, the party must change them. Flashing with an important position and not functioning in it should not be tolerated one bit. I say no more. You see, folks, I know I am not here to match energy. I am here to shift the goddamn atmosphere. I was born to be a game changer. Check yourselves, folks, because you too were born to stand out and not fit in. Thanks for joining. Continue to share. See you next week, God willing, for more extraordinary programming. Until then, I beg you to stay safe, stay well, remain vigilant to push all those bears back in their holes. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Just type in my name, Edward or Eddie Frederick. Subscribe, like, and share. And be prepared to receive your mental multivitamins as straight up as I deliver them. Happy New Year once more to one and all. May 2024 be the year you've been waiting for, to take your health more seriously, so together we can bring our national life expectancy to 70 years and over with a healthy nation. Folks, Godspeed. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you for joining today. It was really a pleasure having you join me. And for the newcomers, I'm here every 2 o'clock, every Sunday, 2 o'clock. Every 2 p.m., every Sunday, at 2 p.m., I'm here live on Facebook and YouTube. So you too can become a regular. Thanks one and all. Have a great week.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Welcome to EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy. For too long now, our generally perceived poorly educated electorate have fallen victim to the cheap and inferior propaganda of those seeking to hold others captive under the guise of democracy. Gladly, the CDGG uses EDDIE-FICATION to help to actively pursue a sustainable approach to reorient our people towards the importance of electing and selecting people of good character to public life. Through EDDIE-FICATION, we will highlight the importance of education appropriate to our development, proper healthcare and facilities as our right, respect for law and order, not to mention upgrading our people's thinking so they could become qualified participants in the democratic process to their advantage. After all, Grenada's national constitution makes allowances for the ideal of free men to enjoy freedom from fear and want, which can be best achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his economic, social and political, civil and cultural rights.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.